Welcome to Tripping the Void with your host, Saraphine Hurley. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go.
Well, good morning, good afternoon. It's Saraphine Hurley here for Tripping the Void. How are you? It's a beautiful day here in the Pacific Northwest where I am right now. I hope it's a great day where you are. Just as a reminder to please like, subscribe, and share Tripping the Void and all the other great shows here on the LNM Radio Network, as well as please make sure to donate because we would not be here without you guys. You guys are so important to our survival of shows and being able to provide everything 24/7 to you as well. And we all of us, every single one of us, if you come down to the chat, if you haven't already been there, we really enjoy speaking with all of you. And like a lot of you are family. So yeah, if you haven't already done so, go to the LNM Radio chat so that we can all get to know you and hang out during the shows and like, subscribe, and find other hosts as well. So today we're talking about famous or infamous. Do we even really know the difference between these things anymore? I mean, one of the things I was thinking about lately is with all of the heinous things that are going on in the news, are we really even thinking about, do we know the difference between right and wrong anymore? Or is it just a knee-jerk thing? Does it suit me? Is that why I'm making these conscious choices? Just like the thing that happened in Annapolis. And I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm not going to take a stance on it, if you'll excuse me for a second. But there's been so many horrible things in the news that I'm not going to take time out to glamorize every single one of these things because they're horrible. And I believe that they shouldn't be getting the press time that they are getting. Yes, they're all horrible and bad, but I believe that the families need to be contacted, and all people need to have the level of respect that we would all expect in a time like that. Because you realize that some of these people don't even have time to even know that their loved ones have been hurt or their loved ones are involved in horrible things before it even hits the news. It's ridiculous. I was thinking about that hashtag that came out several years ago before we were hashtagging everything like crazy, the quit making stupid people famous. We need to start actively putting that into play and really thinking about, yeah, stupid's really a relative term, but how much do we stake in people's ability to know that right from wrong, and stupid or not stupid decision to like pick up a firearm and go take it out on a bunch of people that did nothing to you ever. And because of that person are never going to do anything ever. Like, yeah, I'm not going to go into the dark part of that, but you can fill in the blanks there. And so once again, today's topic is famous or infamous. Do we even know the difference between these things anymore? And our call-in number today is 202-559-7943 if you'd like to call in and chime in on our topic today, or if you have a story about this, or if you would like to weigh in, go ahead whenever you would like to call in. So it's not like it's a bone of contention with me. This is more of a, and it's not really a rant either. I think that we're falling really far away from our thought processes because we're so smacked around by everything that we see media-wise or things that are expected visually, that a lot of people may not be so excuse me, apt, if that's the word I'm looking for, may not be so apt to calm their own thought processes down for a second and just quit spinning and not be in the moment so far that they're going to do something horrible and permanent. I mean, if you sit down and really think of it, that's kind of what happens. It's like the person at Annapolis had, what did they say, like a crazy amount of time to really be thinking about the situation, and then all of a sudden the person decided on, I guess, for lack of a better word, retaliation, question mark. I don't know. I don't know the processes on that. I've read what I can about it, and really seems to be clouded as to the wheres and whys. A lot of these things happen. Air inversion today makes everything so much fun. But every day, I always learn something new. But in the last few days, it's been between the things that I need to do, which is lately, for those of you who don't know, that I'm here taking care of my mother. And that essentially, I came here from Fort Myers Beach, Florida, because my mother had a heart attack. And they found out that she had had a ruptured gallbladder. Now she's waiting gallbladder surgery. I just got her out of the long-term care facility yesterday. And my gosh. And it's been kind of a trip because I've taken care of my mother before, but it's getting more and more hands-on than it used to be, which is never a problem. It's just that it makes you more busy, it makes you more tired. And that's not a complaint by any stretch. It's just there's so much to do here in the house still. But just making sure that all of those things get done and her needs get met is the number one priority. So, yeah. So with that being said, listening to a lot of car radio, which isn't necessarily a good thing. I really miss my satellite radio in my car. Miss my car, miss my house, miss my cats. People need to quit smoking around me. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna. Blah. Anyway, if I could breathe today. So, there are many pairs of words that are confusing for non-natives, right? Famous and infamous would be words that have somewhat similar meanings. So I'll let that sit for a second. So some people don't realize that infamous and famous they're related, but they're not together, right? They're like, I would say that they're like aunt and uncle or something like that, or cousin or they're cousins. That would be better. They're cousins in a way because they're the opposite of each other, but they're still related. So, famous and infamous are words that have somewhat similar meanings in the sense that both the famous as well as the infamous are well known and recognized. However, while people want to be famous, they dread being infamous. Why is it so, right? What is the difference between famous and infamous? Do you know what the difference is between famous and infamous is? Does anybody have any idea? Once again, our call-in number is 202-559-7943 if you have anything to say about the famous and infamous before I go any further here. Infamous is not an antonym of famous. Neither is it a synonym. It is famous. If a famous person is popular, so is an infamous person. Blech. If I could talk today. In fact, infamous people have far more recognition. So infamous people are far more famous than regular famous people. So being in infamy is kind of like the difference between, well, I'll just go down a limb here and say, you got Mother Teresa and you've got Adolf Hitler. Mother Teresa, who's famous, who's infamous. I would say genocide makes you fairly infamous. And then I would say Mother Teresa and all of her works would make you fairly famous. But she didn't do it for fame, obviously. But yeah, there's the white and there's the dark and there's the bright and there's the black. And it just depends on your scope, I guess. But, excuse me. Pardon me. My allergies today are really bad.
I have a perfect example.
Yeah, go ahead, Katie.
My perfect example would be of the woman that was broadcasted over the news, who has now famous for a meme. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That poor woman. She's never gonna live it down. Or we recently here in Whatcom County, where I'm at, in around about the area of Bellingham, Washington, is the check me outside lady. If you ever caught that YouTube thing where these ladies were at the club or whatever, and they were trying to get people to, I can't remember exactly the circumstance, but it's actually pretty funny. But for this person to be the check me outside person, I don't feel in my scope of understanding that that would be a positive thing to be known for, just like the ain't nobody got time for that lady. But now it's already been done. We can't undo it, can't unsee it either, but it's there. So, but now we have all these other isms add to our culture, right? But thank you, Katie. That's really good. Let's see. If I could breathe and talk at the same time, it'd be so much better to pick up where my notes are, right? So, however, knowing when to call a person famous and when to call them infamous is very necessary if you do not want to offend them. This is because a famous person is known for all the good reasons, while the infamous person is recognized for ill deeds and other wrong reasons. Once again, our call-in number is 202-559-7943 if you'd like to call in here. So famous. A person is famously recognized easily for good reasons, usually, right? And thinking about this, I'm like, well, our scope of, and my mother even brought this up, and my mom does not watch the show, Kim Kardashian. Yeah, Kardashian. So the Kardashian show, which her mom is a marketing genius, because how would we have all these children that had limited contact with other things other than having a famous lawyer father, and then some adult videos that, oops, I didn't know there was a video of me doing stuff like that videos. And then your parent marketing that. It's just, I'm eked out that somebody's parent would have hands-on on that. But in my only in America scenario, that these people would be getting more and more wealthy from bad things. So they look at themselves as famous, but like a person like myself, I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm looking at it kind of like it's kind of infamous, because when I think of Kim Kardashian, I think of the connotations that she has for the things that have happened that may not have been the greatest, like the video, funny ears, the videos. I'm sorry, isn't there more than one now? I don't know. So like I said, I'm not going to be looking that up anytime soon, but all I just know is that she did have one or two. So now, my mom knowing Kim Kardashian just from advertisements for commercials on regular television, it just kind of takes my breath away, because she doesn't, if I showed her a picture of Kim Kardashian, she probably couldn't tell me who she was, but she knows verbally who she is. Strange, huh? At least I think so. So the famous person is recognized easily for all the good reasons. He or she is held in high esteem, and whenever he or she is talked about, it is in a positive manner. I'm going to say usually in a positive manner. I didn't get time to put that in there, but I added the usually. We all remember the people for the good or the bad, and this is even people in our past, or people in current time. We look at them with a good connotation or a bad connotation, whether or not they deserve it or not, right? So let's say I'm going to call, and I'm just going to use this as an example because my sister's not a bad person. In fact, I love my sister very much. But however, let's say you look at your phone and, oh my gosh, this person's, oh, it's my sister. I don't want to do that. Or every time you hear or see somebody's name, you have this negative thing that goes off in your head. Now, don't you have negative things that go on if you hear, like, let's say, we're going to say Kim again, Kim Kardashian? Do you like go, ooh, Mufasa? I mean, where does it stop? Where does it start? I mean, is it based on personal opinion, personal belief? Because I know there's people out there like, and this is another thing my mother brought up. My mother is absolutely not impressed by Jersey Shore people, like, and she brought up by name Snooki. And we had this conversation that went something like, well, if I were a parent with small children, I don't know that I would be still calling myself by that negative connotation, because back when I was still watching shows like that, when I watched television, because I actually don't actively watch regular television anymore, commercial television anyway, that to see these people tear themselves up in public on purpose, and that's kind of like putting a negative connotation on yourself just so that you can be infamous or be famous. I mean, are you going to sell your soul for that? Are you going to go and make yourself look like something that's not the greatest? As far as, I'll just say, what if I went out and did something like that and people would automatically call me a slut? Excuse my language. They're going to say, oh, that was really horrible and she shouldn't have done that because it just made her look like a total slut. And you know what? It's true. I think that it would make me look like that if I was running around doing all those things. Excuse me. So that's why I don't actually, even when I was going out, I'm not going to be going out and doing questionable things, because I don't really have the need or want to make myself look like a fool in public. I never really have. It's not really been a thing for me. But let's see. So these people who are revered in all parts of the world for being famous in the positive way, right? Excuse me. That even the rich and powerful will know somebody like Mother Teresa, right? Even if they're not religious, they would know, oh my gosh, excuse me. They would know people for her works alone, that she, even before she was canonized, she was known as a living saint, even before all of the proof was in after she had passed away, that her deeds were known far and wide for all of her works. I mean, I don't know too many people who don't know who she is, you know? So she's revered in all of the parts of the world. I haven't been one place where nobody knows about her. And that's why I'm using her as an example, is because people generally know who Mother Teresa is. I mean, her even up to and including her charisma and personality traits, people can tell you that, oh, she was such a jovial, genuine person. And even in the pictures from Time magazine, you could see that she had a great sense of humor and she had a glorious spirit and all these other things that make her just a great person. Yeah, so another person who would be coming up like that, and this doesn't mean that I have a certain political view, just that the name is absolutely recognizable, like Barack Obama, right? So he's extremely famous. Why is he famous? I don't know. African-American president, that's pretty big, right? Very, very big. So president of one of the biggest democracies in the world, which I think is a very loose term when you say it, but when you look him up, that's how it comes up, with that biggest democracy in the world. Okay, that's another subject altogether now, isn't it? So he's talked about in a positive manner mostly, but as is some of the people and the cruel irony of politics, he's bound to have opponents having antagonistic views. Always there's going to be antagonistic views. It doesn't matter if Barack Obama was a saint or not, because he was a politician, and still kind of is because he was a president. Not even kind of, still is. That he has influence, and so there's always going to be somebody saying the good and the bad and whatever. Like I said, I'm not going to be taking any sides on this. I'm just saying that I'm using his name because he's really well recognized. So
I have an interesting one.
Yeah, go ahead.
One that's infamous and famous. One that's been around in history, depending on who you follow, so on and so forth. Jesus Christ. He's the Son of God. and what would assume to many, maybe may or not, started Christianity, which has millions, if not billions, of followers. He was crucified and rose on the third day. He did countless miracles and showed us a way on how to be kind to each other. Or he's the biggest fraud in history. Famous, infamous.
Shall we pass the plate around and find out?
You've got and other noteworthy mentionables for infamous. Nero, Genghis Khan, Hitler, or maybe Cain. He was the first person to kill another human, supposedly.
That we know of.
So it depends on which route you want to see. You see infamous and famous in every aspect of life. I could be famous.
Right. And like Cleopatra as well.
But
like,
the moment I do something bad, I'm now infamous.
Right. Alexander the Great. Is he infamous or is he famous? Because that's another case of mass hysteria, genocide, and taking over the world. But Alexander the Great isn't really looked at the same way Hitler is he?
Exactly.
Potato? Anybody? Just because he was like lopping people's heads off and enslaving everybody he came across to put into his massive army, I guess it doesn't make him a bad guy, or does it?
The other question is too, is there a similarity, and this will just open it up a little bit broader, is there a similarity between famous, infamous, and notorious?
And I'm getting that song stuck in my head. Yeah.
Notorious is famous for being a rapper, but Notorious is also a gangster. He's famous for his criminal activity. So is he famous or infamous or notorious?
Come on, Katie, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yo, what up?
What?
I mean, you've got people like you've got Al Capone.
Yeah.
Al Capone, Charles Manson.
Yep.
Ted Kaczynski.
Yeah, Kaczynski.
Have I even got that right? Tom Horn. Who else have we got? Adam Lanza. Andrew Keogh.
Well, yeah.
And then, of course, you go to other parts of the world where movies highlight biographies or, I don't know, based on a true story kind of thing, who highlight people that are infamously famous for being notorious, i.e., I can give you one. I can give you one example. Wolf Creek, the movie Wolf Creek in Australia.
It actually happened, and they never caught the guy. They have an idea. It still happens. But that whole entire... Have you seen the case file on that? It's amazing.
It's huge. There was another guy, Chopper. I don't know. In Australia, I know some infamous Australian people. Chopper. Chopper Reed is his name. Anybody who's out there listening, look him up. He's got an interesting story.
Do, if you're not familiar, or even if you are familiar, because even in all the research that I've done, I still learn new things, even when I re-Google things like, let's say, Ted Bundy or Fox Hollow Farm, or all these little different keywords for, serial killers. I always find things that I have not seen before, always, not even just a little bit. It is I
find it, what I find really, really interesting is the fact that in terms of showbiz, making the infamous famous for what they do notoriously makes them famous to begin with. Doesn't matter what they do. You can interchange each of those three words. It's a bit like, highlighting what they did, and then throwing it all back on them, and thinking that they were bad people, good people, bad people. Who are we to decide in society who's good and who's bad? We're back to this perspective of yin and yang, tomato, tomato, potato, potato.
Right. And I just peeked in the room a second. Marie said Jack the Ripper, and that's correct as well. Never really figured out who we have some ideas who he may have been, but nobody has came out with concise data stating who it actually was, even now that we have DNA and we've got all this other stuff that we can go back and get. The Jack the Ripper case is still a cold case for all intents and purposes. And he is infamous.
I find it really, 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 I don't even find it strange. I find it really interesting that we perceive the most notorious criminals to be famous. For doing what? We live in a very warped society. We really do.
Yeah, and I'll be the first one to raise my head and say I'm not right. I love serial killer culture. I live, sleep, and breathe weird stuff. Because it's not that I think it's okay for that. It's just that I want to know what makes somebody do those things and drives them to murder a bunch of people under the guise that they're trying to cover up whatever affiliations they have or proclivities, let's say, that they have, and be closer to the victims. And then I'm just going to go over here and bury them under the crawl space and then think that nobody's going to smell it. Gacy, it's like, oh, I didn't know I had all these people under my borge. Whoops. How did that happen? It's crazy. Or the Black Dahlia, that poor woman. She was an up and coming starlet, and one bad decision makes her end live in infamy. Isn't that crazy too?
It's like I said, we Sean in the chat room just came up with a something that he just said. JFK assassination is an infamous crime.
Mm-hmm. That also is as well.
So I assume do we condone criminal activity and just make it famous because we can?
I would actually state on record that by our perusing the media, even in our own pleasure or leisure, and looking up the videos on Reddit or and going and looking, even though it's an historical document of JFK's death or shooting, let's say, that even looking at that is a way of condoning all of it. Just like my stance on everything that's happened up till now with my coming up with this famous or infamous thing, that do we really truly know the difference? Because we're actually aiding and abetting it actively by making stupid people famous and infamous.
Sounds like watching YouTube videos. It sounds like watching YouTube videos over and over again just to glorify something that may be good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's perfect. You can't tell me that there is a perfect person out there.
Oh, there's none. There's zero to be had. I mean, even children can be corruptible up into a certain point and age. We've proven that. It's just we can only shelter our own children for so long before they're no longer innocent, even in society's eyes, because they're sullied by what they've seen or sullied by what they've had hands-on and witnessing. I mean, have you seen some of these children that have witnessed war atrocities or been around them? I've been around some of these war orphans and they're messed up big time. Or going to places like Sierra Leone and being afraid to go to sleep because you're afraid to either lose everything or be shot in the head by a 7-year-old for a blanket or shoes or something like that. That gives you some perspective. It's like here, that's less likely to happen. I'm not saying it couldn't, but it's less likely to. But you go to things that are places that are deemed to be third world countries, and your eyes get opened a fair amount by, wow. So, excuse me, good or bad doesn't exactly exist in the realm that I understand it to be. Once I cross over and my American dream time ends and I'm in somebody else's world entirely, right? So, like, one of my biggest culture shocks is my parents may have had cable by the time I was like 16 and a half years old, right? Excuse me. But when I moved to England, I live in Brighton, England, and I was standing on a street corner. I decided to treat myself and go do the tourist thing and go to London. So I get off the train at Piccadilly and I ding around, and I'm just standing at the crosswalk, minding my own business. And what do I see? And cue women going at it. Yeah. Which was odd for me because I'm from a farm town in the middle of nowhere, and that shocked me entirely. And even at that point, I was a horror movie enthusiast and all these other things happening. I could watch decapitations for days and not flinch. Now, watching two women kissing freaked me out. And I was 22, 23, something like that.
And we have Papa Bear on.
Hey, it's Papa Bear. Do we have audio?
You got no audio, Papa Bear?
I'm sorry. I
there we go.
muted myself and I forgot. Sucks getting old. Don't do it. Okay, don't do it.
I don't plan to.
This famous, infamous, things like that. I mean, I was reading a thing earlier today about this guy who lived in an apartment complex, and the neighbor's baby was choking on a grape. Okay. And this serviceman, of course, you know, Marine, and he performed CPR and he got this grape out of the child's throat and everything was fine. It was wonderful. As a matter of fact, they gave him a nice little award for that, you know, at a ceremony on his base. That's great. There are people who do this every day, okay? They're paid to do this. They're called paramedics.
Right.
All right. Now, then you think about, let's say you've got 4 people riding along in a car, okay? And you got a couple people in the back seat. One of them finds an apple on the seat, and they decide, hey, I'm going to take a bite out of this apple. They take a bite, and a piece of it gets lodged in their throat. Okay? There's one person who knows how to do CPR a little bit, and that's the guy behind the wheel. Okay? Luckily, 4-door car. You pull over, you pop open the door, you pull them out, you give them the Heimlich, or a couple of good thrusts, pop, it comes out, you get back in the car, you're on your way, right? Nobody's any the wiser. What's the difference between the 4 people out in the middle of nowhere where this guy had to perform a Heimlich maneuver and someone else who's in an apartment building that saves a baby from a grape? You know, the difference is the publicity.
Yep, that's true.
How much exposure there is. Okay? And I look at these unsung heroes, things that happen to people like that, and I'm like, you know, I've done things like that. Am I looking for a medal? Hell no. I don't care. It's just something that people do ordinarily. It's all in the call of duty, if you will, and humanity. So, but those things, yeah, when it comes to famous or things like that, it's all in how much of it is published, how much publicity you get, who sees it, exposure. It's all about exposure.
Okay.
Like the deal there with Zimmerman, right, where he shot that kid, and I mean that would have gone nowhere if there was no publicity. Stuff like that happens like that every day. Chicago, look at all the shootings in Chicago. Do you hear about those?
Yeah.
So it's all about exposure. It's all it is. I mean, I don't know.
Which is exactly why I just said, you know, how much in society now do we glorify petty crap?
Yeah, imitation is a very good form of flattery, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what you've got. You know, you've got people imitating people they see, their parents. Oh.
Yeah, that's why every time something bad happens and I see the news crews ponying up for the queue to get the best shot, it's like, do you realize that there's people in there that have just lost family members or are about to lose their lives, and you guys
No,
worried about
separation
getting
from a
the next
family
shot?
member? You can't separate these people from family members.
These are horrible. I mean, where does it stop? I mean, I realize we need to get news to people. Yeah, hey, you might want to know about this, but at the same time, at what sacrifice? These people deserve to have some respect and decorum surrounding their injury or the thing that they just went through. Not all of them die, but still, there needs to be some respect somewhere, doesn't there?
See, this totally relates to last week's show. What's normal?
I know, right?
Yeah, but it's all focal points. You know, I mean, everything is a focal point, and what's around it is irrelevant. It's just one focal point. That's what news is about. They focus on one subject and they try to chew on it, unless you get some very creative media that will find something that's a little bit off, and then they'll grab that and they'll run with it. You know, just something a little different in the picture. It depends on what they're reporting on and who is reporting. And we were talking about levels of intelligence. I was listening to you about levels of intelligence and who's stupid and who's smart and this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. Levels of intelligence vary by individual. It's an individual thing. And I know we don't like to treat people like individuals anymore, like throw them in some sort of group somewhere, but I don't know. I prefer the individual thing, you know, because I've yet to see anybody else who thinks like me, you know, in all ways. It's not going to happen. It's really not going to happen.
Well, we're just that. Probably we're all individuals to the point of fault, where there's the good aspects of ourselves which make us individuals, right? And then you pare down and see the things that may not be the greatest of things. Like, I'll even call myself I'm a reality death enthusiast. Doesn't make me a good person. It just makes me, I'm interested. I've always had a medical background, so I wonder why.
Yeah, but you have a curiosity. It's a curiosity that hasn't been fulfilled, and you're still trying to examine it more. That's all.
Yes, and the adrenaline junkie part too. I mean, it's almost like a high when you think about it. Some of it, because some of it's just so horrifying to watch or see. It's like I'll bring a case in point, which is still available in some places if you can find it. I'm not going to say where you can. I'm just going to say that it can be found. Is the German guy that murdered the guy that was a potential lover, but he basically okayed it to eat him on camera. And this is a 6-hour video. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a real thing. It's not an urban legend.
There is one person that is famous that makes infamous people famous.
Mm-hmm.
Ellen DeGeneres.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, then you're talking about famous. I mean, it's like the Kardashians, right?
Yeah.
I don't know who they are. I would have never known about Kanye West until I found out, well, he left the plantation, you know?
Well, like, my mother should not know who this person is. It's like I was popping off to, you know, little things to my mom. I'm like, I could talk about this, or I could talk about. I'm just trying to involve her, so, you know, trying to make talk while I'm getting her breakfast and stuff ready.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, Kim Kardashian, and I'm like, my mother knows who Kim Kardashian is. I'm like, well,
she has a television, right?
Well, she does, but she watches little old lady stuff. She doesn't watch reality TV. The only reality TV I think she really watches is sport shows.
My mother took me by surprise too one day when she started hollering, "Who let the dogs out?"
Oh, jeez. My mom started that. I'm going to video it.
She's the sweetest old woman, I'll tell you. She was 87 when she passed. It was about, 2014. So. Yeah. But that, I mean, to hear that come out of my mother, I'm like, what? What's she been listening to? You did pick up a lot just from advertisements, you know? It's crazy.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy. So if my mother can pick up that person and have and understand the connotation that goes with it, because her connotation of it was not good. He was like, yeah, that's totally negative, and I wouldn't have done that. I'm like, yeah, her mom's a marketing beast. I mean, I'll give her that. I'll give her that. But I would not be whoring my children for any reason.
Right.
That's me. That's my personal choice to not do that.
Yep.
Now, however, if that's what her prerogative is, then you're just gonna have to watch her go, and not hate on it. But
Right.
with my entitled opinion, I'm going to say, wow, all right.
All right. Hey, thanks for taking my call. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to have a couple hours in the spotlight tonight. So, thank you.
Well,
And,
thank you for calling in, and like you called in before, and I really appreciate your input. So,
well, thank you.
great
You have a
day,
good show.
and have a good show. Thank you. Thank you, Papa. Katie, did we have any other callers or any questions from the room?
No, we don't have a caller or no questions at the moment. But we do want to mention something, Saraphine, and that is that it's Ira's son's Seth's birthday today.
Yes.
And we would love to wish him happy birthday.
Absolutely. Definitely a big happy birthday to Seth today, and hope that you are enjoying your birthday, and everybody who's celebrating should be National Seth Day. So happy birthday, Seth.
Woohoo! It's party time. And we do hope that you have a
birthday.
lovely day.
Yes, have an amazing day. As amazing as possible.
So going back to famous, infamous, whatever we want to call it. Another person I can think of is Madonna.
Oh, yes.
Madonna. We all know that he, she. I just saw a picture in chat. So threw me off a little bit there. I'll talk about it in a second. Madonna is the center of controversy. Now, controversy, we all know, sells very, very well. Yes. And you can be a make or break of being defined between infamous and famous at the same time. What you say doesn't matter in society, doesn't matter what you say, whether it's a political view, an opinion about something in the street, it's an opinion about fashion when you go into a store or a product. It does not matter. The more that it is talked about, and going back to the, publicity, what Papa Bear said, the more that it's talked about, the more famous it becomes. Mm-hmm. But there is a fine line between being famous, being infamous, being notorious, and how we exploitate these things.
Yes.
In the instance of that child that Papa Bear was talking about, the grape.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do we glorify the woman on the street who needs to have the Heimlich maneuver, who doesn't need an EMT but survives, but we talk about it because it happened in the middle of the street and everybody saw?
Right.
Compared to the baby who really needed help from an EMT, right. And how we glorify an EMT. And it could be different circumstances, different situations, and different, different scenarios. Are we really exploiting people and glorifying them just because we want to talk? And we've got nothing else to talk about. I mean, all the things that happen in society. Surely we can't, like I said, I can be famous, I can be infamous. Does what I say count? Or do I exploitate myself just because, I want to become famous? Or do I find a famous person, ride on their coattails, exploit myself by doing it just so that I can become infamous, famous, notorious, whatever?
Yeah. I mean, where does it stop with the whole, I'm going to go ahead, not only gut myself in public, but I'm going to, drop trow while I'm doing it. So it's extra bad so that I can do it. I mean, does that make any sense to do stuff like that? Like we go back to the Jersey Shore incidents. It's like, or do you remember that some of us remember back in the day when the worst thing you could probably watch was MTV and their little
Mm-hmm.
apartment thing that they had going on, you
You've
know?
got some situations where Surf just brought up a good point.
Yeah,
Big Pharma is known and famous for helping people. At the same time, they're also infamous for killing people.
right. And I've actually actively seen it. So one of the reasons why I quit working with Santa Sud, which is it's basically a French charity. I'm not going to go too big into it, but yes, it's one of the reasons I was been in and through Sierra Leone and other places that Americans normally don't go is because Big Pharma does a lot of stuff that ends up being a part of somebody else's study so that they also are making more money on top of the money that they could potentially make because they're running these studies for governments. And I'm not going to say which one, but it rhymes with America. So that we can, I guess it's up to and including a certain point, if you're able to get your hands on some of these reports from, they used to say that they weren't doing the big studies anymore, but they certainly do. I can tell you they do without a doubt. It's like if they're going to be running scams on, well, we think that this medication, well, when they open it up to, we think it does this, that means that it's a study, not we know it does this. So we're going to unload 75 cases of this one medication, then we're only going to unload 8 of these. So we're going to hold the 8 back, and then we're going to wait for the people that we think fit in this certain demographic or this certain whatever have you to give these inoculations. And they're giving them to children and to people who are old and sick to see what happens because they believe that their lives don't matter. And I'm serious as a freaking heart attack. I've seen it happen. And they just sit back and it's like tagging sharks. They with the same amount of information and the same amount of whatever. I'm just going to dart this person. I'm going to give them a couple of pills and make them think that they're going to get better. When in fact, it's quite the opposite. A lot of times they don't get better and they just watch them decline and find out how long it takes them to do so. Or they start an outbreak on purpose. And there's actually hardcore research that actually backs some of this stuff up. And the scary part is people are absolutely aware of it, but they keep going back and taking their handfuls of pills in the morning, like entire fistfuls of things that are nothing but poison. And the reason I can say that is because I was actually on poison for almost 7 years, and I voluntarily got off of it because it was not improving my life. I was actually taking morphine that was given to me by my doctor, which doesn't make it any better. And because if you think that the doctors don't label you as a junkie, they do. And it goes all over your file and everything. And the moment that I took myself off, it made me an enemy. So after I took myself off of it, I was told to do step A, step B, whatever. And I didn't do the step A and step B that they wanted. Excuse me. And the first 5 days of coming off of morphine are probably the worst I've had in my entire life. And I literally legitimately thought I was going to die. It was that bad. And the doctor that I had drop me, was very adamant about it and was very vocal about it. Yeah, it kind of opens your eyes when you do stuff, not only work with things in the medical field, it's like over time, it's like all of these things become revealed to me, like working for big organizations that are charity or supposed under the guise of charity, I'll say. And then going back in and being in my own life and having to be reliant on medication to get through the day, and then finding out that or looking inwardly and figuring out that I really didn't need it. It wasn't really doing a whole lot for me. And in fact, now I'm better off than I was. I'm still in a lot of pain, but you know what? I'm not standing here sweating and smelling like a farm animal for no reason, and things of that nature. But the moment you stand up and start saying that you don't want to do something, or that you realize things are the way they are, people really take an affront to it, like doctors, surprisingly enough. And you'd think that it wouldn't hit them that hard because I'm just one person, but shockingly enough, it did hit him hard enough for him to be belligerent about it. And once again, to remind you, our call-in number for Famous or Infamous, 202-559-7943 if you'd like to call in, or if you have any questions there in the room as well. Katie, do we have any questions from the room or statements?
Not at all at the moment, but I will mention something.
Okay.
Another person, and it might be a little controversial, and it has been controversial, especially out in the public limelight and that kind of stuff. Michelle Obama, famous for being the First Lady of the United States, the president's wife, or the former president's wife.
Right.
Then became even more famous for having a penis, starting a controversial thing. Memes came out. When someone becomes infamous, they predominantly get memes. They're glorified. Specifically, people who are just normal to society, people who speak out against certain norms are exploited.
Right.
They go, so do we recognize Michelle Obama for everything that she's done as the First Lady? Or do we recognize for Michelle Obama for being a lady with a penis?
Well, I would recognize her as being the First Lady, because even going back as far as Bill Clinton and his sexual proclivities for interns now, and other people that are not his wife, people will always go back and look at the negative aspect of that. But the truth is, if you were Joe Schmo across the street, we wouldn't be caring who you had sex with. And as the president, I'm actually glad he was getting some. So I really don't mind if that person, it's not my business if in fact Mrs. Obama has a penis. In fact, well, okay, great. But how does that affect me politically?
That's exactly right. And there's a very big distinction between how we provoke the perspective that we may or may not even have, and it may even be attributed to the influence that we are given. Things like this does not come out of nowhere. I mean, I can tell you right now, I was born with strawberry blonde hair, and I had green ears, and I had male and female body parts, and I had a tail.
Okay.
Are you going to see me as for what I am? Or are you going to see me for the awkwardness, bizarreness, and everything else in between that I could be? People don't, when people start talking out in the media, especially, and I think the media is the biggest influence in a lot of people, is the media is the very reason why the Kardashians are famous to begin with.
Oh yeah, it's definitely because, like I said, her mom's a beast when it comes to marketing and everything else. That's all she had to do.
Exactly.
Was go out and talk about her children, be it negative or positive light, or say her ex-husband was an attorney on a very famous case, which is also an infamous case. Something that the American people's learned should have taken a lot away from beginning to end of that case, because that could be a show in and of itself right there. But it just blows my mind how one person can build build into their family using such a negative spin and have everybody think it's perfectly normal. Because there's nothing positive. If you lay out and go, well, is there anything positive that comes out of this? Well, if I'm to look at the glass half full aspect, I would actually say that the glass half full would only be tolerance and learning to work around things that are not the greatest of situations or alternative situations. But I don't know. And it brings a lot of questions to light. It's like, did people choose to make lifestyle choices based on income? And that they would become more infamous or famous if they were to make that kind of a change for gender? Or do you get that far in life and decide to say, yeah, I've been married a couple of times, let me go ahead and be a woman now? I don't know. There was a lot of things that made me go, huh, when Bruce Jenner decided that he wanted to be female. Because usually stuff like that's not done that late in life. I'm not saying it never is. It does happen, but it kind of made me think that it was happening more for monetary purposes and not any other purpose. Because that whole time, did you ever see him dressing in a non-masculine fashion or acting differently? Or are we basically told that he was acting out of character because of the character he played on the show as the character of Kris Jenner's husband, you know?
And by all means, for the listeners out there, we're not judging people about, their sexuality or anything like that. We're kind of questioning the motives of people when they do become or want to become or get themselves exploited and involved in the controversies that shape the society that we live in today. Now, I mean, psychologically speaking, okay, people they got their right to their own choices, and that is a very, very good thing, individualism. But there's a fine line between
sensationalism and individualism.
Exactly.
I'm going to become a spotted cat with purple sparkly whiskers and a blue mullet because I can be surgically altered to do so, and I'm going to be on the cover of the Sun magazine because they just are opportunistic like that.
That's the thing is that society where we're now in that kind of modern day society where I can wake up in the morning and I can legitimately call me a meatball and a hot dog. Not that I really want to, but I could call myself that because there is no definition to being human anymore.
Oh, I know. The definition of human. I believe that
in the conspiracy world, we're aliens or hybrid humans or mix of this and that and God knows what else.
Well, if I remember correctly, a few days ago, Ryan Gable in Secret Teachings, he was talking about something very similar on his show about, being surgically altered and how it makes you, I mean, does it make you less human, more human? I mean, people being augmented to become animals. I mean, where does it really stop? I mean, is it going to become a sensationalist thing, or is it going to become more of a thing that happens all the time, from going from, oh, I really like this aesthetic to, oh, let me make the aesthetic an everyday thing. Like going from getting the traditional, I'm going to get my whatever zhuzhed up so that it's, looks better. But instead of taking a collar out of the drawer that I can put on every once in a while, I'm just going to have it medically and surgically implanted so I never have to take it off. And then I'm going to have cat ears. Isn't that great? No, for me, I would rather be able to take those cat ears off and put them in a drawer or whatever. If I get tired of them, I can donate them or whatever. But I don't know that I'd want that permanently. But people are permanently wanting things like that. It's like, where does our humanity go? Does it make us, I mean, if you can change your identity as far as male to female, female to male, or however you want to identify yourself, right? And I do have a fair amount of people in my life that have had sex changes. So I totally respect the idea of that. I'm not bashing it. However, should people be changing themselves to gain a paycheck or to gain some kind of fame for it? It's like, I'm not trying to be a hater, but you've got to wonder where one moral statute stops, one begins, and we start looking at things completely differently. You know what I mean? Where we have a high amount of respect and regard for people who have gone through the process as it becomes to turn yourself into female to male, male to female, right? Because there's a huge process that goes with that. But what about the person that woke up 3 weeks ago and decides, I want to have a penis? Which is your prerogative, but do we enact on that and we start letting the rules slide a little bit so that people can just have what they want now? Are we becoming that kind of a society where it's just totally normal to have major elective surgeries to change the way you look? Because I just woke up today, my pants don't look the greatest, so I think that I would just be so much more improved to be a guy. Are we becoming these people? And then that person decides that they're going to go on a crime spree because they got a botched job or something. This is where we're at, folks, where it's becoming completely sensationalistic and opportunistic, where not only am I going to go have, let's say that, because my mother's sick, she's got to have another surgery. Now, what if somebody's waiting in the wings to just go and have surgery, excuse me, knowing that they're going to have surgery, that they're waiting for somebody to drop the ball so that they can sue? I mean, welcome to America. We have the land of frivolous everything, including lawsuits and other things. You could just add the ... A. B. C. 2, whatever, ... or these other things. I mean, are we going to stop spinning anytime soon, or is this going to be our new normal? Are we going to just start being all over the place and being absolutely, I mean, how do we stay respectable as a person or persons here if we're constantly flaking out and becoming something different just because? And I'm not saying because you have a grand reason for being. I'm not saying that. I'm saying just because I felt like it. Because I felt like it. Just because. And the just because is your prerogative, but what have we become if everything is just this compulsory thing that I don't even think about anymore? Like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. I'm just going to go get cat ears, and while I'm at it, I'm going to have a garage door opener installed or something. Bluetooth or RFD. Once again, our call-in number is 202-559-7943. And on that note, Katie, can we take a break?
We sure can.
All right. Thank you for hanging out with Tripping in the Void. And we'll see you in a few minutes.
There are days that the red pill is bitter in my stomach, but I can't get it back out. I think because I have to. I speak because I have no choice. I walk through this dark age we're in with open eyes. Listen to Open Eyes on latenightinthemidlands.com. And together, maybe we won't stumble and fall.
Data. The sensors can't penetrate the planet's ionosphere. There's too much interference. Can you find a way to scan for life forms?
I would be happy to, sir. I just love scanning for life forms. Life forms. You tiny little life forms. You precious little life forms. Where are you?
Even the ETs know this is the place to be. LNM Radio Network.
You can listen to the LNM Radio Network 24 hours a day, 7 days a week through the Paranormal Radio app. Available from LNMRadioNetwork.com or TalkStreamLive.com on both Android and Apple. Our call to listen line is open 24/7. Dial 701-719-9704 so you can listen on the go.
Ever wanted to be sure your robot slave was behaving? Is Echo getting out of control and meeting with Alexa when you're not around? You need RoboGrog. RoboGrog is the new product from Snooze You Lose, the company that also brought you the fine products of Flog a Horse and Calm You Down Now. RoboGrog will put your robotic minions to sleep, bringing their AI a sense of peace and comfort. It does this by sending bolts of electricity straight where the sun doesn't shine. Get RoboGrog today at any fine retailer and set yourself free from the devices that bind you.
You can't just throw someone into prison and silence their warning because you don't agree with them. You don't have to like my methods or what I stand for. Silencing me won't make the problem go away. It will just whittle away at the ability of people to be ready for the real threats. And when the worst happens, and it will, maybe you can take comfort in protecting the people from a dangerous radical who wanted to tell them the truth.
Tired of searching for great talk and great information? Look no more. LNM Radio Network, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Back home, there's a growing pro-Earth movement. Rumors of hate groups targeting aliens. And on all sides, the fanatics think that society has to be protected against anyone who's different. I'm starting to wonder if what we just saw is a preview of things to come.
Oh, I can't believe we'd be that foolish. Santayana. Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Welcome back, and thanks for hanging out with Trip in the Void here. I'm Saraphine Hurley, and once again, our call-in number is 202-559-7943. We're talking about... What are we talking about? Oh, yeah. We're talking about famous or infamous, and do we really know the difference anymore between that famous and infamous? And Katie did throw in the Notorious. So, yeah, that would be nice to have bumper music with Notorious B.I.G., but that would probably be a licensing problem, right? I'm just saying, throwing it out there. But yeah, Notorious. I mean, where are all these fine lines? Where are we drawing them? And do people really even know the difference between famous and infamous anymore? I mean, by definition alone. And I also will like to please encourage you to like and subscribe and share the material here at Tripping the Void, as well as checking out all of our awesome LNM Radio Network hosts and hostesses here. We've got a great lot of them as well, and we can't, we can't really hang out here without your donations and your being here. You guys are so important to us. We love you guys, and thanks for being in the chat and hanging out. And if you are listening currently and you haven't been to the chat at lnmradionetwork.com, please feel free to look us up and hang out as well during our shows. Lots of information as well, just getting to know people. So anyway, we're talking about people augmenting themselves, or just everything just seems to be running amok. And I'm not saying that doing things yourself electively, deciding that you're going to be a different person as far as maybe you were already a person different than how you identify. I'm not talking about that. I legitimately have friends and family members who have made those changes in their lives. But I'm talking about people who are going to exploit a change like that for their own better good. just based on, I just woke up and decided that it would be okay to, like that guy, I think he was a poker player, I believe. Yes. He was a poker player that took a bet, and I believe that he had to have the breasts for, I think, 2 years. It was a guy that had breast augmentation surgery because his friend bet him an exorbitant amount of money to have the implants put in, and he lived and worked and played his professional games with these breast implants, and he still had them for a while afterwards. And I don't even know if he still has them because I didn't look it up, but there's a case in point right there. He augmented his chest like a woman would do because he doesn't live an alternative lifestyle. He's a guy's guy, I guess, for all intents and purposes, from what I understand. Could be different, but this is what I understand. And he did it to make money. It was another way for him to pull a paycheck, which, like I said, don't hate the player, hate the game. But however, when do we stop horning in on other people's things? Like, we have people who are probably going to get mad at me for even speaking about sex change operations, which they're a little more than that now. In fact, they're a lot more, and there's a succession of things that have to happen before that happens. But are we going to stop medical professionals from actually making sure that things are all in line medically, mentally, whatever, for the patient, and making sure that everything's 5 by 5 before rolling on a major surgery like that? Or are we gonna start seeing sex change operations in strip malls if we don't already? And I'm sure I'm gonna get hit with that. Somebody's gonna show me a picture of a strip mall surgical place that you can go in and come out a different person entirely. I bet. I'm waiting for it. Won't wait too long. I just know that's going to happen.
The problem is that it's actually a matter of perspective. Have we lost reality? We're so far from the disillusionment, the disillusionment of society. We're so far removed from that, and we don't have any individualism anymore. We don't. There isn't anything. I wonder whether half of what I'm saying right now is even real. Am I real? Am I even human? I question that. We do so much. We're so involved in disillusionment that we don't even know who the hell we are as people. We don't have individual thoughts. Unless we actually know thyself, then we do. But we're so disillusioned, we can't have an opinion because an opinion is always influenced. Oh, yeah. That goes along with belief systems as well. Belief systems are influenced heavily by the fact that we're influenced by one or more people to have a uniform belief. So is it a power structure? The reason why society is the way it is? Controversy sells, right? Hey, I can be Madonna. Hey, what am I Madonna? Hang on, let me pinch myself.
You could be. I don't know. Could you? You never know.
Am I? I seriously, a lot of people doubt themselves. They do. They doubt themselves because they, it's very, very hard to find a perspective on your own. Very, very hard, and we become, people who are just, all over the place. We don't have a proper sound opinion. We don't have. We lose that sense of reality, and then of course, psychologically speaking, in terms of society, we're just screwed up. That's just putting it bluntly.
Not too fine of a point on it, but yeah. People get all twisted, and it's like just mentioning people who have sex change operations is a dodgy thing. You can't, it's like all of a sudden, here's some glass and some eggshells, tread lightly. It's like, yeah, but I do have family members who've made that kind of change, and people who are very close to me. And I realize it's a monumentous decision, and a lot of things go into that. But are we coming to the point where if somebody's going to have ears and a tail, or if they're going to go even one further and become blue, or have fangs permanently put in, or where does this stop? Where we're becoming these personas that we see on the television, or whatever, used to read in books, but more prominent to just click on Netflix for our whatever $10 or $12 it is, and become that person, and maybe not ever come out of it.
And that's the fatal attraction of life. Now we do have a caller on the line. Ira, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ira.
Well, hey, thank you so much for taking my call. And I thought that I would toss in a couple of things here to you guys and see what you think. We were just talking about the identity things and all of that stuff. And one of the things I think that we're seeing in society today is that because people are so easily labeled. Number one, we've got like one section of people that are believing those labels about themselves. And so they, take on those personas. And you have another group of people that are trying to buck the system in any way that they can and avoid any labels that they can while trying to be labeled. I mean, it's like, as an example, and Saraphine, you could probably get behind this. There's people that look very similar, but they act very differently. There's the goths and the emos. They dress in kind of similar ways in a lot of ways. They have sort of some of the same tendencies and that kind of thing. But if someone was to look at a goth and say, well, you're an emo, oh my God, they freak out. It's a complete freak out. Right. Exactly. Exactly. And yet to people that are outside of those groups, it literally is no different, in appearances and so on and so forth. So what I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that when it comes to labels, we need to stop being labeled, stop being the labels that we see around us, and just be a human being, just be the person that we are, if that makes sense.
But does anybody actually really know who we are?
Well, see, that's one of the problems, because how do we know that anything outside of our own selves exists? You see, that's one of the issues that comes into play here. As this meat suit that we're wearing interacts with the world around us, or the energies that are around us, do we really have any interactions with other people, or is it all basically a figment of our own creation, our own imagination? Because nothing exists outside of our own brain.
Right. That's a good point, actually.
I mean, everything that you see, you're not actually seeing it. It's being translated by your brain. It's just like, I make this point quite frequently, where if you're looking out of your eyes, your nose is always in your vision, and yet you never pay attention to it. It doesn't actually exist to you. Your brain writes it out of your vision because it's unimportant. So unless and until somebody either points your nose out to you or something is going wrong with it, you don't even pay attention to the fact that it's even existent. So does it actually exist? You see, if you have, you're sitting in a chair, for instance, right? And you're doing your thing, does your foot exist without you being actually consciously aware that it's there? I mean, all these things are part and parcel of the human experience, but nobody really thinks in those terms. I guess I'm weird. I don't know.
And of course,
that's not weird at all. And I was going to say that, like, when you're talking about the grand scope of things, and like, I'm sitting in a chair and I'm this and that, but I'm dressed as Saraphine, and see, maybe when you mention that, and it's like, this is how it is in my brain. So maybe my brain is all in my brain it's all Addams Family, but in somebody else's brain it's all Betty Crocker.
Right.
There's a difference, because Betty Crocker to me is Morticia Addams.
Right.
So somebody else, it's Donna Reed. Morticia to me is Homie. Other people go like H to the no. Arsenic in my tea? No thanks, I'm good. But other than that, I mean, because this is my goth phase never stopped, and it's just because it's perspective, like the things that have built me to become the Saraphine that I am before everybody, right? But even in that, there's many facets to that. Like, I do have my moments of wishing I had a white picket fence, but knowing that would never fly, because I'd be out there painting it the next day probably.
Well, and the other aspect of things too, Saraphine, and this is another important way or important thing to think about, is that as a, again, the meat suit that we're wearing. I'm going with the meat suit ideology instead of the soul ideology, because they're two different things, you know.
Yes.
But as far as meat suit is concerned, you know, the persona that we take on, the personality that we have, that's all meat suit. The person that we really are, though, is something entirely different. But you know, the every cell within your human structure is changed every 7 years. So the person that you are today literally is not the same person that you were 7 years ago. 100% different in every cellular way. So if you are having experiences that you are basing upon things that you experienced 7 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago, you really should take yourself out of that same perspective, because you literally are not the same person anymore. Physically, you are not the same person.
And that goes for the future as well. You know, we can never predict the future either. So the same person as what we were a year ago is certainly not going to be the same person that we wake up to tomorrow, because tomorrow is a brand new day. And the issue with that is that we are, you know, very much, we've lost our sense of individuality. That's what it is. We've lost our sense of identity due to the influences that we have. Yes, we do grow older. We do grow, and we do, you know, but how much of that is our perception about the reality that we're living in accordance to the human experience? And the thing is that you know, I don't know how far, you know, that human experience will go in terms of you know, where we're going, who we are, and you know, who we want to become.
Right, exactly. And unfortunately, we've lost our host.
Yes, we have, and I'm just working on getting her back.
I apparently took over the show.
Whoops! No! So we will continue the call.
See what happens when I call in. I cause all kinds of havoc.
Fault, Ira. No.
She just sent me a message. She got the blue screen of death. So.
Oh, okay. So what we're gonna have to do is continue the show until further notice. You're okay with that, Ira?
Yeah, I just send her my phone number if she wants to call it in, and I can tie her in here.
Okay. So.
Sorry, folks, tech issues. You
yeah,
gotta love
it happens. See, it happens.
I totally devastated her.
But while we're here, we do.
Yeah, hold on. I think I'm getting her in here. Hold on, just a second.
Okay. Well,
Saraphine, are you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry, my laptop decided to go all blue screen of death.
I totally took over your show.
Oh, it's all right. It's all good. If anybody's going to take it over, you and Katie, you go.
This is what happens. See, this is what happens. I can't broadcast on Saturdays, so I take over shows by osmosis. I come on and I act like I'm calling in as a caller, and then I just totally take over the show. See.
Oh. Whatever.
Hey, you know, these things happen. It is live radio, and I'm not going to stop it either, because you know we you know, this is what the network does. We kind of just fill in wherever needed, and you know, we're all well versed on these topics. So you know.
So I don't know what all you caught of what I was saying there, Saraphine. What was the last things that you heard me saying?
I'm sorry, I went all blank and squirrely, because I'm like,
yeah.
My thing never does this. What happened?
See,
like
I'm telling you, it's something. I did something. I broke you. That's it. I blew your little mind. That's it. Now, what I was saying was, you know, one of the aspects of things that most people don't realize or think about is that, you know, as a human vehicle, this vehicle, it changes everything cellular structure wise every 7 years. So the person that you are right now today is literally 100% different than the person that you were 7 years ago or 10 years ago. So, you know, a lot of people, they go through their life, experiencing the things that they're experiencing, but they're basing it on, like the decisions that they make and the things that they do on things that have happened to them in the past. So what portion of ourselves is ourselves? That's the kicker with it, is if you're doing things today that are based upon things that happened to you 20 years ago, why? That was a completely different person, you see.
Yep, mine, I know for sure for myself, because I do a lot of inward looking, is that because you're right with the change in the cellular structure and the breakdown. It is a lot of this based on random access memories your brain has, and you keep restructuring as a similar person to what you once were, or it just becomes old hat where you become a creature of habit. And this is the Saraphine that lives here, and it just is, or it kind of makes you wonder.
It really does. It really does. And I guess one of the other aspects of it too is how much of ourselves is actually our own decision making, or how much of it is placed upon us by either outside forces such as the newspapers that we read, or the internet that we follow, or the Facebook posts that we read, and so on and so forth. And the other thing too is that, growing up, for instance, a lot of people, they have fears that they have these like inherent fears that are in them and that kind of thing. And how much of those are actually fears based upon your own experiences, as opposed to the fears that were placed upon us by our parents, like injected into us by our parents or our family. You see, so we might not have ever gone through the experience of seeing a snake, for instance, and touching a snake. And yet most people have this fear of snakes because their parents told them, don't ever get near a snake, don't mess with them or anything like that. But they've never experienced it for themselves to have that own fear, you see?
Yeah, and I can speak from experience on that one too, because my mother doesn't like snakes very much. And so I became obsessed with them when I was a kid, because I'd pick up snakes and frogs and stuff because it would annoy my mom. But on the backhand of that statement, you're talking about how things that are instilled from your parents like that like how a lot of us who are a little older than 20, I will say that we were raised to fear our parents, that if I put one toe over the line, I was for sure, I knew I was going to get killed. My parents would kill me. And it wasn't just they're going to punish me. It was a God entitlement instillment. Like if I were to come home like that, I was legitimately going to die.
Yeah.
So, so we never hardly did anything wrong because there was that fear hanging over your head, whether it happened or not, right? And 9 times out of 10, I mean, I got a fair amount of spankings and stuff, and I'm sure I deserved half of them or more. But did I believe that that I could have been killed by my parents? Oh, heck yeah, because the fervor and the passion that went into that spanking was like, this was going to be your last one if you screw up.
And then they always tell you, this is going to hurt me worse than it hurts you. How?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. It's like, sure, lady, or sure, dad, you're right.
Been there, man. Oh yeah, been there. But that's the thing again, how much of the decisions that we make now are influenced by that kind of thing. It's like one thing I try to express on my shows once in a while is the fact that everything that you do, every decision that you make, everything that you see, it's all seen through this filter of all of the experiences, the culmination of all the experiences from the moment of conception forward. And that includes, all the talks that you've had, the advertisements that you've seen, the people that you've passed by on the street. All of these things are right there in that little filter of experiences that you've been through. And then piled on top of that is the stuff that's been injected into you. And I think that when it comes to like these labels and all that kind of stuff that we were talking about earlier, those too are injected into people. They take on these labels, trying to find a way to describe their experiences instead of saying, oh, well, I experienced XXXX, they instead say, oh, well, I'm a conservative or I'm a liberal or, whatever the case is, instead of saying, no, I'm a human being. This is my own decision.
Right.
I mean, it's like people again, political parties, right? How many people follow the party line no matter what that party line is doing, because they think, well, I'm a Democrat, so I have to be behind whatever the Democrats stand for, no matter what kind of stupid thing it is. Or if they're a conservative, the same applies, right?
Right. Oh yeah, that's everything within the realm that you actually live in, even up till now, I believe, makes you up, unless for some reason you're actually more self-aware. And that's why I like to encourage everybody to make sure that they're absolutely as self-aware as you can be, so that you're actively making choices instead of making choices like a mindless zombie. Like, yeah, I'm going to get up and get my whatever and have my latte and I'm going to watch the Kardashians. The moment I start telling you that I'm watching the Kardashians, you need to send somebody over to deprogram.
but you also see how you saying I'm going to watch the Kardashians, all of a sudden the people that hear you make that statement, their own minds warp to look at you from a certain perspective because, only certain people watch the Kardashians. You see what I mean? Labeling's a dangerous thing.
It is a dangerous thing. It's a double-edged sword. But yeah, if they come and step to me and tell me, but it's such a great show and blah, 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 I'll invite them to tell me why it is. It's like, if I'm bad, come and spank me and tell me why. All right.
Yeah.
So don't just sit there from afar and go that I'm just being judgy. It's like, well, you're entitled to your opinion too. So tell me, why is it such a great show? Why is Kris Jenner such an awesome mom? I'm just saying. And I'll wait.
Exactly. Well, listen, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself here. I'm in the middle of cooking some chicken, but since you're connected up through me right now, I'll go ahead and stay connected until you can reconnect.
Oh, thank you, Ira.
But I'll go ahead and mute myself here and busy myself over here. But thank you for letting me gab for a little bit with this stuff. When it comes to the fame and the infamy, again, I'm in agreement with what you guys were saying earlier, 100%. I think that the media does more damage than good so many times because, again, what do they focus on? They never focus on, hey, this guy is over here helping out these veterans. Hey, this kid over here is doing this wonderful thing. Hey, this guy is over here, going to the hospitals and visiting the kids' wards dressed as Spider-Man, and the kids love him and adore him, and look at what the good he's done for these people. No. They never focus on that stuff. They pile on the newest shooting and try to identify him within 5 minutes, and then suddenly now the fame train starts running. It's a very, very big problem, to say the least.
Right. It's amazing the amounts media has gone to not only control our society and control the opinions and polls and they do it with, it's not only just advertisements, it is events, and I want people to start seeing with their eyes a little more open on that. It's opinion and action reaction.
It really is, and again, I hate to say it this way, but it's weird that when things start going bad for a certain portion of society, suddenly we see new shootings, suddenly we see new things happen that the media focuses on to draw the attention away from the info that's coming out. It happens, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's sad that it's happening that way, but it's called control. How else are you going to control if not through fear?
They're not the opinion former, like people don't form their opinions based upon what they're reading in the media. The media is literally creating the opinions.
Yes, exactly. And that's ding. You're right. That's exactly right. Right on the nose.
Okay. Well, I'm going to mute here and have fun, guys.
Yeah, so go do what you were doing. Thank you so much for helping save the day there. And Katie, you guys are so awesome.
And make sure, Ira, that you do bring some chicken back, please. We're all hungry in here. We've got listeners out there that are starving. So I hope you made enough.
Where's our wine and dark chocolate, man? Come on. And happy birthday to Seth since you're on the phone. If he hears that, unless he jumped away for a second. But anyways, so did I miss anything else, Miss Katie?
No, you didn't. You didn't. I think that we wake up in the morning and we decide who we want to be based on, whether it be an influence, whether it be an attribution that we've been taught, or our favorite word, indoctrinated with. Things don't come out of nowhere. Input colors. I sit on a black chair. But are you sure? Are you sure that it's black? Is it what we called it?
That it's black?
There's a fine line between and this is the same subject that we've been talking about for the last hour and a half. Infamous, famous, potato, tomato. We don't, we've lost humanity. Humanity has lost its own direction because we've somewhat lost the ability to think for ourselves. We're in a society we don't read. We're in a society where we base our own opinions because of what we've seen. And that brings up another point, is that let's just say you put into a situation where, you're in a lot of pain, or you've been traumatized in a scenario. You can call it what you will. You can have an image in your head and you can think of a scenario. It's not that hard to do. So with this scenario, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it in the media. Let's just say, for instance, I'm going to exploit it. You see it in the media. The media absolutely loves, sad situations. They like negativity.
Right.
But on the flip side, there is a little bit of positivity in the world. But you can't influence, to a certain extent, when you exploit it that way, you can't influence somebody, like that. And there's one reason why, is because when you base your opinions about what you've seen, heard, or, felt, or something along the lines of that, you are not actively participating in that scenario or situation. So therefore, your opinion is going to be nothing but an opinion. When you've never stepped, it's like saying, we put labels on everything. We do. We put labels on everything because we don't know better. Old habits die hard, and they will never change. People will, once you start to, it's a bit like religious indoctrination. You've learned it. The ideologies. The belief system. This, so you continue it on because you know no better.
Right.
You feel safe. You feel comfortable. Now, those opinions, though, are formed from the influences that we've been given. But we never stop.
Right.
We never stop to have an opinion about who we really are. Like I said, I can stand here and I can say, hey, I got blue ears. I've got a tail. I've got strawberry blonde hair. I got black eyes. But that doesn't make me any less or any more of what the next person standing next to me is.
Right.
We've lost our humanity, we've lost our individualism, and we've lost the, the ability to form an opinion about ourselves. It's a bit like having the saying, look in the mirror before you judge others.
Exactly.
See you
Pull
for
that
yourself.
2x4 out of your eye before you go talking about the straw on somebody else's.
And that's the same with, being famous and being infamous,
Right.
How many of those people are just riding the gravy train just because of their own exploitation? At that point, we have lost humanity. It's like I want to become famous because I got big boobs. Or I want to become famous because, I'm a woman. I mean,
oh my gosh.
We've got attributes. I mean, a man, where have we lost ourselves? We've lost ourselves because, men, there's certain characters about men that stand out. But through the exploitation of the individualism, the individualistic, sensationalism that comes with being a man or being a woman, we lose ourselves. Right. And that starts from the day we are born. And nothing will ever change.
It's like I feel pretty proud to be born in the time that I was actually born in, even though I still feel out of time and out of source. Like I never really belonged here, but at the same time, I've been given the opportunity to have a human experience that is, was unsullied to a certain point of perception, at least to me, because now these kids are getting out the gate. They're told that they can't do this and they can't do that. And it's okay, not only that they can't do it, that it's okay that they can't do it, or to make it some lame excuse as to why they can't. I know amputees that go around speaking cross country that couldn't normal and would have been told that they wouldn't be able to have a life past, the age of 3 because their parents threw them out and left them for dead. I mean, seriously. Now, how many people do you see speaking now that are between the age range of blah and blah? I mean, because we're surrounded by people who, and I'm not going to say the age gaps because they're becoming more and more broad, but the level, not only level of entitlement, but level of delusion. Like, well, I'm just going to sit and play Overwatch for 80 bajillion hours and not actually get off my duff and do anything creative with my life. When I was a younger person, we were meant to play outside until the streetlights came on in the summertime. Even if it was raining, my mother would send us outside. I mean, and this is Washington State. It doesn't rain all the time, but it doesn't sunshine either. We played outside in the snow until our hands turned all pruny and we needed to put water on them. It builds character. And now these kids are being told what they should think before they even leave kindergarten. I mean, I'm sure to a greater extent, if I were to look back, at my childhood, I'd see that my kindergarten teacher probably instilled some stuff in me that I wasn't too aware of. But now the stuff is coming from left, right, side, upside down, and triangular, or just make up a direction and throw a paper airplane at it, because that matters too. You see how crazy that sounds? It's like, yeah, I want to just be. Why can't people just be happy with waking up in the morning, putting their feet on the ground and taking that first breath and going, hey, the assassins failed. We're already halfway done with the day.
Well, that's exactly right. That is really, really true. And what do you think of this? I did a show back in, December last year. And basically, I am actually writing a book about this too. So, this is one of my hot topics. Reality, illusion, perception, persuasion, conformity, individuality, freedom of speech equals we are nothing. Until we can actually stare in a mirror and say, can believe that who we are seeing in the mirror is actually, us, our soul to bear, it's all a matter of perception. If you lose yourself, if you cannot look yourself in the mirror and see you for who you are, we're totally lost.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
We're lost.
And becoming more and more few and far between, because I've even posed questions to strangers standing in queue, in line at the grocery store, when I'm out having to interact with people. And people think I'm just being smart. It's like, no, I'm actually asking you a question. Can you wake up long enough and actually answer me? Because there's somebody out here who actually cares whether or not this means anything to you. Like, you woke up, it's like, oh, if I open the door for you and say, have a good day or whatever, like, I opened this thing because my mother wanted to get some soup or whatever, and so I have the door open for her, and these people walk through, and I'm like, have a good day, and they just give me this look like I just basically went to the bathroom on their floor or something. I mean, what the heck? And all I did was open the door for them. You would think that they'd be like, oh, thank you. Well, that would be my reaction, thank you, not you just cracked my Wheaties. We're so accustomed to judgment. We're so accustomed to labels. We're so accustomed to the Great Divide, whatever that is. The Great Divide, segregation. And I'm not even talking about race here. I'm talking about everything. No, it's cultural segregation because people are automatically, it's like they're in tune to the fact that my hair is unnaturally black, that's all they see. Exactly. They just see black hair and they go, oh, dear Lord, get away quick. Not that I might have halfway decent,
that's why I keep saying, that's why I keep saying, what's wrong with having black eyes and strawberry blonde hair and blue ears and having a tail? What's wrong with it?
I want to have a tail.
Hell, what's wrong? We have, Seraphine, we have a show here. Tripping the Void is all about the taboos that are there in society. We're exploring that. That's the whole reason why this show is here. And we're not out to judge people. We're out to explore. No. Well, Seraphine's out to explore, and I'm not out to explore. But I just contribute to the show because I can. But you are out to explore the very conundrums that we go through every single day.
Yeah.
The trials and tribulations of humanity, not life, humanity.
Yeah, in my own realm of human scope and experience, these are things that blow my brain on a daily. Like, why this whole infamous and famous thing? How many millions of tangents can we go into? And then, the exploration of other things as well. I mean, I'm a button pusher, and I'm aware of that, but I want to know what your reaction is and why it is. Like, when I brought up the whole, because people are so quick to think that or other people who are speaking as well here on the network, that we're being judgmental. We're actually not. We're trying to pose things from a different angle to try to get you to act and react. It's like the action may not be something that we're all looking for, but we're definitely going to try to make you think about what just happened. It's like, why I want you to think about it. I want you to be active and challenge me. If that's the only thing that's going to motivate you in this conversation and to be incensed by it, great. So take that and tell me why it upsets you. Don't just go off mad. Tell me why. Tell me how I'm wrong. Maybe I'll learn something from it, It's not a judgment. It's action-reaction. Excuse me.
And that's the whole point that, we have to, in order to have a human experience, we have to experience, the reactions and the reactions, whether good or bad, to the human experience itself. If we can't experience the human experience, then who are we? Exactly. We got to be able to, follow those attributes, maybe go in with an open mind because, there's a lot of people out there that are, sorrowful they have forgotten that we are individuals in a meat suit. We are humans in a meat suit. You know, once we start to learn to get rid of those labels that we have that clearly define ourselves for who we are, we're able to have a positive, you know, outlook on life. Once we start to walk down that road, it's a bit like, you know, you will never understand me if I can't jump in your shoes. It's a bit like the situations I just mentioned earlier about being in a situation where another person can't understand because they've never been in that situation before. Mm-hmm. They've never experienced that situation. That's the whole point of human experience, is that, you know, famous, infamous, notorious, whatever we want to know by, but you know, we exploit ourselves by losing that, you know, individualism, and taking on the attributes and the ideologies and the isms and the indoctrinations and the beliefs, and I could go on forever, you know, that we take on for ourselves. It's up to us to make that change. If we don't make that change and we don't see it for what it is, then we are lost. We are very, very lost people. And you know, my final thoughts before I give you back your show is that, you know, I encourage all the listeners out there to, you know, find out who you are individually. You know, find out, you know, look in the mirror. Spend 5 minutes and look in the mirror. Appreciate everything that you are.
Yes.
Because we can be better. We can grow better people by looking at ourselves in the mirror and appreciating the heart that we have, the brain that we have, the looks that we have. Mm-hmm. It's not all going to be perfect, and we're imperfect people. It's just like perfect and imperfect. It's the same as infamous and famous. It's the same thing. How we perceived ourselves to be is, you know, is what we want to make ourselves known by. If we choose to exploit it, then that's a different kettle of fish altogether. But if we choose to exploit it, remember that there is consequences and reactions and consequences that come with that.
Yes.
So where do we, you know, find out who you are and define yourselves. Be you. Always be you. And with that, I'll give you back your show so you can, you know, do your thing and finish up.
Well, I'm totally in agreement with you, Katie. Like I was with Ira, it's like we can tear these things down and compare them, and do little sections off and put it all on the whiteboard. But at the end of it, we not only are we in agreement, but we can all find a plane of understanding within the boundaries of this conversation. Every single last one of this, and I'm even talking about people in the room, in our chat room here at LNM, that we all have an agreement on this, even if you don't see it immediately. But since we're all having this experience and we're all seeing things from different angles, because I'm seeing mine from the Saraphine angle, you're seeing yours from the Katie angle, you know, Ira's got his Ira angle, you know, that it doesn't matter what we do at the end of the day, as long as we're sitting there and realizing that our actions and reactions do have consequences. It's like, do we judge this person openly and risk an event? It's like, do you realize that even coming in contact with people, like I was behind somebody in the car on my way to get my mother yesterday, and this person was littering. And the thing that I was thinking in the car was like, because I drive with the window open because I've been super tired. And, well, I like the fresh air even when it's raining, so I'm just kind of weird that way. But so I'm driving, and this person is throwing trash, and the first thing I'm thinking of in my head is that trash better not hit me, because if it did, that person would be incredibly rude, number one. And it kept happening. And this is a succession of probably about 4 or 5 miles. I'm behind this person who's actively throwing things out of the car window in traffic, right? And then I get to the final light, and I'm just thinking to myself, because I'm perfectly, absolutely annoyed at this point. And I'm like, I totally want to end this person like right this second. But then I grab the end of that sentence and go, how do I even have the right to want to do that? You know? Because if I did that, how do I know that person doesn't have the cure for cancer or the cure for AIDS or whatever? You know, they might be driving whatever car they're driving, but however that is, they could be the super genius that I'm not aware of because of our judgments. And we're not ever going to be without our judgment and opinions, because opinions are kind of judgments, aren't they? So with this famous and infamous thing, and now we've got notorious, thank you, Katie, because it actually does work out in the grand scheme, right? That we've got all these things. And I mean, care to spin the wheel? I mean, with famous being Mother Teresa, and then we have infamous being Adolf Hitler, if you want to go into the grand scheme of sliding scale. And then of course we've got the notorious B.I.G., but notorious in and of itself is like well known and whatever. But excuse me. But the infamous and famous aspect is people, a lot of them couldn't tell you if famous was a good thing or if infamous is a bad thing and a good thing. Because even asking random people, most people couldn't tell you if infamous was good or not. And if you look in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, it actually breaks it down for you and tells you that famous usually always has a positive denote or connotation somewhere derived from it. Infamous is usually negative, and they put the usually in there. I didn't query to see if it's a recent usually or if it had changed, but that's also would be interesting to find out if it was something that was in addition. But yeah, I'm just every day going through, getting my mind blown by these little tiny things that turn out to be so big with the trying to keep stupid people from becoming famous. And if most people would start turning a blind eye, and that's not saying don't look when the screen says so many killed at blah, blah, blah. I'm saying don't believe the hype. You need to not buy into so many things and not let it turn your head. Maybe you should start, if you see that flash, maybe your heart should be turning to the victims of whatever happened and wondering if there's anybody left and how those people are going to act and react after this tragic event happened. Not watch it for 82 hours and buy into the whole scare aspect of it. Maybe we should be thinking a little bit harder about why things happen and maybe figuring out how we can get them to, maybe if we can't stop them, maybe we can figure out how to intercept them before they happen, before they become events that are mostly negative.
Saraphine.
Let's just say.
Saraphine.
Yes.
We do got to finish up. There's a live show on.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. So yes, thank you for listening to Tripping the Void and my random rambling, since I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see the clock. So I apologize for that. So in wrapping up, just please remember to like and subscribe and share the Tripping the Void, as well as tuning into LNM Radio Network and making sure to like it, should subscribe and share as well, and give our other hosts some love. And tune in next week between 2 and 4 p.m. for Tripping the Void, which will be, I'm sure, another great topic. So you enjoy your awesome weekend and Canada Day for all our Canadian friends. There you go.
With Saraphine Hurley. I know I enjoyed the trip. Until next time, Saraphine Hurley with Tripping the Void. Later.